which is what you used on that pitch, I believe.
Right, just those two good hooks.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
oh, look at here.
And I got the peckers and the bird beaks.
All right, baby angles. I knew I had something there.
In October of 1997, Scott Thompson and I were in Zion to try to make the first ascent of a line that I'd looked at for 25 years. Our friend, Freddie Snalem, was along to capture the antics on camera for use in a big wall instructional video that I had planned.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
If I can get started here. Oh, lunge for the first hold.
Does she fit good?
Yeah. Oops. Falling. Tree climbing. All's fair in aid climbing and war.
After stepping out of the top of the tree at the beginning of the first pitch, the climbing was all free and excellent, with jamming from fingers to off-width on perfect sandstone. I've always striven to do as much free climbing as I possibly could, even on big walls. Free climbing is less harmful to the rock, as you generally place fewer points of protection, and unless you fall, no weight is placed on the pieces you do manage to get in, so they can be removed easily. Equally important to me is that free climbing is literally a physical communication with the essence of the stone, which in a sense choreographs your vertical dance. At times it's brutally expressionistic, and at other times light and airy. I like free climbing so much that I essentially gave up aid climbing back in the mid-1970s. Since then, my goal, even on big walls that are normally aided, has been to climb completely free or not to do the climb at all. However, in recent years I've been struggling with multiple sclerosis, which has drastically undercut my free climbing ability. I guess you could say that I've begun to see the point of aid climbing again. Scott had climbed a lot in his 20s, but then had gotten involved in business. Only in the previous few years had he again taken up the sport, and this was his first big wall.
Get out of there. That's a nice one, huh? Good jam climbing there.
Kinda. I believe this is probably the biggest rack I've ever done this hard a pitch in.
The second pitch was also free, again with difficult and varied jamming and liebacking.
Oops. Too small.
Too small.
Better use a different size. This one. Slack.
Grabbing the wrong size cam is a common mistake. It's one that will occur far less often with the introduction of my brother Greg's link cam design from Omega Pacific, which has a far wider camming range.
I think this is a little harder than down below.
Think so?
Maybe.
Oh boy. Yeah. You gotta.
Not too graceful there. God, I got those cams all jammed between the rock and me. I couldn't move up.
About 2 feet.
That's it, huh? Yeah, this is the ledge. I'm on it.
Oh, good. Or not. Or you can wrestle the son of a bitch with no rest. Okay, watch me.
Gotcha.
Tighten me up if you can. Fuck. Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks, Freddy.
I said nothing.
Yeah, Freddie didn't say anything.
Never heard a word.
Woo!
We had an extra long 100-meter hauling line with us, which would allow us to avoid hauling until the belay on a good ledge at the top of the second pitch. But the extra long rope meant there would be an extra lot of rope stretch on the 9mm cord.
Let's get together.
Okay.
Ready? Go. Go. Go.
Now we return to the scene 45 minutes later, and as you can see, the boys are still pulling away. Well, we'll leave them to it, and we'll come back in about another hour and see how they're doing. Okay, children? Well, a week has gone by, and as you can see, we're still pulling away. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think they've moved it off the ground.
It is. It's off the ground.
It's off the ground now, okay, so now they can really start pulling the last 500 feet.
Okay.
And what's that between your legs, Jeff?
Oh, that's well, that's the whale, we call it.
All
It's been
right.
called the whale before.
The first 30 feet above the belay ledge was easy free climbing, but we had to be careful of some large stacked blocks we had to climb on. But the easy going came to an end under an overhang with only a knife blade thin crack offering hope for progression. I placed a drilled angle at this point to protect what would obviously be a difficult aid traverse underneath the roof. In the years since we climbed this route, which we would ultimately call Lodestone, in honor of its magnetic character, I've wondered what it would take to do the climb without hammering. On this traverse, I think if the crack were widened just enough, with a careful use of constructive scarring, then thin crack wedging cams, such as Trango ball nuts, could be used from then on, which would limit the damage to the rock while maintaining the technical climbing challenge, which includes an expanding crack underneath the roof.
A little slack. Shifted. Fuck. Whew. Let's see. What am I gonna do here? Little slack. Okay. Oh, it's shifting.
From the end of the roof, a crack shot up vertically for 50 or 60 feet, requiring a variety of nuts, cams, hooks, and a few pitons, either baby angles or knife blades. Hammering the baby angles could probably be eliminated either by using micro cams or by using a little-known technique developed by my brother Greg way back in the 1960s called cable camming. This method requires sliding a loop of cable alongside as you hand place the piton in the crack. The The cable loop can be either purpose-made or a wired nut. Holding the piton in place with one hand, pull the cable loop until it wedges solidly between the tapered piton and the rock. A variation of cable camming uses a small wired nut wedged alongside a blade piton. I have often found that hook pitons designed for ice climbing work well in thin cracks, reaching deep inside and grabbing on something, allowing a hammerless placement. On our 1997 ascent, I used the traditional Yosemite aid technique, utilizing two sets of aiders, each consisting of a main aider combined with a sub-aider, clipping into each piece of protection with a daisy chain or carabiner from my harness to stabilize high stepping. Although I wasn't aware at the time of Ronalewski's technique of high stepping, which he calls teeing off, it might well prove to be useful in sections of vertical climbing like this, allowing longer reaches and fewer placements. As I climbed higher, the crack required a few dicey moves on small hook-style pitons or knife blades. With very slight or even no additional constructive scarring, these placements can probably be made hammerless using cam hooks of one sort or another. These devices are also less likely to break off the surface flakes that form the crack here. Finally, the crack petered out, and I started nutting my way up and left across the wall, utilizing shallow grooves, headed for another crack higher up. On diagonal sections of climbing like this, it's important for the second person following on ascenders to know how to properly pass each piece of protection or aid. To safely follow a diagonal pitch on ascenders, remove the upper ascender from the rope and replace it above the protection point, making sure the cam lock is fully engaged. Then firmly grasp the rope directly below the carabiner and stand with your weight fully onto the upper ascender. This allows you to disengage the lower ascender and let rope slip through until you are directly below the next
After about 90
piece.
feet, Jeff seems to have finally found a piton that's ringing true.
In shallow pin scars and pockets, Trango's smaller flex cams work well even when only one set of cams is engaged, because the cam lobes are directly opposed. When hauling, I've always found that pulling up even lightly on the line leading directly to the haul bag with a reversed ascender or just your hand greatly increases the efficiency of the whole system. The fourth pitch is probably the crux of the route. In fact, our cameraman, Freddie, was too gripped to film and chose to try to make himself small underneath the haul bag in case the house of cards I seemed to be building suddenly collapsed, So what you're watching here is just a representation of the actual climbing. It started off with 6 or 8 birdbeak and small hook-style pitons in a row. It would probably be possible to create a line of precarious hammerless placements here with careful constructive scarring, but I think the pitch will go free at a high standard, so I would suggest placing 4 or 5 bolts to protect the beaking section and the 20 feet of hooking that follow. On the first ascent, we used no bolts for aid, and I hope future climbers can avoid placing any for aid as well, to maintain the adventure and challenge of the climb. But well-placed bolts to allow free climbing on previously aided ground is real progress in my book. Drilled angles are difficult to place well in variable sandstone. It's unsafe to assume that watching this video is an adequate education on the subject.
That's it.
The hooking section led up and left into the bottom of a crack where free climbing brought us to a large bivouac ledge at dusk.
Well, we're here. We've actually made it to the sort of like slopey ledge city, and there in the woods is a man playing with my bivouac sack. We go to actually the Hilton. And there he is himself, silhouetted against the sky, Mr. Hilton.
Conrad Hilton.
Of course. Right, take 16. Right, what have we got for breakfast? A scot.
We have, for breakfast, we have milk and granola, fruit, choice of mandarin orange or fruit cocktail.
And what do you guys have?
I like breakfast.
The big corner above the bivvy ledge looked like a good place for Scott to take a turn at leading. Although future parties should be able to free climb the pitch, Scott did an excellent job on aid. From Scott's hanging belay, I wanted to move right into the bottom of a crack and corner system that leads all the way to the summit. But several yards of blank wall would have required a few bolts to cross, and I was committed to doing the climb without using bolts for aid. My attempts to bypass the blank section by throwing a nut attached to the end of an aider up into the crack ultimately failed. So I was forced to deal with the rather awful-looking off-width crack that continued left up the corner above Scott's belay. We had only 1 or 2 pieces with us that were large enough to protect the off-width section, and I ended up placing several drilled angles to complement the natural placements. If I had carried a set of tricams with me as I normally do, I could have stacked the larger sizes and gotten away with less drilling. Above the Bombay chimney, the crack pinched down to a tight seam with occasional pockets. The rock is excellent here, though, and the pitons were bomber. It would probably be reasonable for future parties to leave 4 or 5 fixed pins in this area, wherever nuts or cam hooks won't work. This section would almost certainly be free climbable also, but very difficult.
What are you laughing at? I didn't have to grovel in an off-width.
Oh,
You know, I could have gone over that chimney if I'd had some protection, you know. Yeah.
but it was awful rotten at the top. That off-wood thing.
Yeah.
Not really a chimney, just a body width. Looking down from the belay at the top of the 6th pitch, the road is 900 feet directly below. Okay. If you fell unroped from this point, you'd make quite an impact on the steady stream of traffic. We originally called the route Roadkill because of this, but later decided that Lodestone was a more fitting name.
What? Oh, we took my headlamp out of the pack.
What do you mean?
Oh, that blue bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got my headlamp.
Yep. Freddie, you got your torch?
Yeah, mine's down in the car.
Okay.
That'll all work, huh, boys?
Yeah.
Since it turned out that we had only one headlamp between the three of us, we decided it would be better to rappel back to the bivvy ledge after I finished the 7th pitch and finish the route the next day.
Save us all.
I followed a horizontal crack and seam 20 feet to the right on pitons and nuts.
Pretty day today.
Once again, the rock was excellent, and several solid fixed pins could be left here. Eventually, the crack petered out, but a small edge allowed continued traversing for several hook moves. Finally, about 20 feet before reaching the corner and crack system I'd been trying to get to, even the little edge stopped. Luckily, at this point, enough holds appeared on the wall above to allow me to step out of my aiders for the last time on the climb and free climb up into a smaller corner to the left of the main system, out of sight of Scott and Freddie. The climbing was moderate but run out in the corner, with only one 3/4-inch angle for protection in 50 or 60 feet. The corner ended in a little ledge where I was able to place another good small angle piton, which protected another moderate 20-foot run out on face holds to a belay. At last we'd joined the upper crack and corner that had been so elusive, leaving us in a good position for the next day.
Well, what's a lot to be down?
Feels good.
Yeah, now what are you going to do now?
Go to bed.
All right.
Up front!
Come. Welcome to base camp.
Some nuts, can of tuna, some crackers, cheese. It's enough for another night, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just don't want any more beer, that's for sure.
Oh no, I wouldn't want any beer, would you?
No.
I'm glad we don't have any beer.
Oh no.
"350 feet of ascending overhanging and vertical ropes were a good warm-up on the last day of the climb, since the weather had closed in and the temperature was rapidly falling. The 8th pitch was beautiful free climbing up the corner, once again with widely spaced nuts and pins for protection. Again, the rock was excellent, and the few pitons could be left fixed or replaced with drilled angles. I placed 2 bolts at the top of the 8th pitch and started a 3rd, while Freddie ascended the trail line and Scott began cleaning the pitch. The 3rd bolt turned out to be a spinner though, and I should have placed a drilled angle instead.
What I actually said there was, there's a flea on my foot. What more can you say?
Not a whole lot, huh?
No, not really. I mean,
If you think about it, very long.
yeah.
There's nothing more to say.
Well,
There's a sling with a beaner on it. These on it. And we can
Put those right there.
Load of quick draws, or do you want the nuts?
Quick draws.
Where do you want them? That way?
That's fine. Yep. The last pitch started with a tricky little hands-free friction traverse on a sloping ramp. The traverse was followed by another excellent corner with long runouts, which brought me to a stance below a final overhanging off-width crack, which we hadn't seen from below. Luckily, I had one large big bro to protect this sting in the tail.
Guys, after 3 to 5 days on the wall, I can say that we've reached the top of this particular thing.
We reached the shoulder of something. Here. The somewhat. You're on the somewhat.
Somewhat.
Ooh, that's, I guess I'm going to put a bigger one in there.
And so the story goes on.
Yes, it does.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an experience. But now enough of this talk, and down we
Get the
go.
hell out of here. Look at this.
We'll see you at the bar.
Freddie was right. Lodestone was an excellent adventure. It's a fine route that I hope can be preserved for generations to come.
No, it's recording very well actually.
There's that big finger right there. I bet that goes on this one.
Freddie Snalem was a climber, skier, snowboarder, writer, photographer, and all-around artist of life. His unflagging good humor was legendary, and he was a great partner in any situation. Freddie was killed in March of 2002 when he was avalanched off an ice climb in Chamonix, France. You can find out more about this remarkable man by visiting the website www.alpineworld.com.